Okay, I am not his guru. I am just a friend of his, a very good friend. I wish. Before we begin this inspiring evening with the poems of Dorothy and Andrew, I just wish to bring the mind here, and let us first thing always turn the mind towards God. The subject matter is God, the subject matter is divine bliss, so let us turn the mind. Close your eyes, bring your whole mind here. Where the mind is without fear, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where the clear stream of reason, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way in the desert sand of dead habits, where the mind is led forward by Thee, O Lord, where the mind is led forward by Thee into ever-widening thought and action, into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, into that heaven of freedom. O Father, let my country awake, let my culture awake, and my Lord, let my being awake. All of you inhale.
Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaste. Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for braving the wild storm winds to get here. This book is one of the most important books to have been published for the last 50 years, because it is a book that brings together the most significant work of the person I believe to be the greatest living mystical poet, someone whom I have loved and known intimately and very profoundly for many years. So it's especially joyful for me to be here to read with her from her great book. The book is called Some Kiss We Want, and the title is taken from a poem by Rumi, who has been our mutual beloved for decades now, and it's in the translation of Coleman Barks, for which I have forgiven Dorothy. I love Coleman Barks, and it is a wonderful translation. But never happen again. There is some kiss we want with our whole lives, the touch of spirit on the body. Sea water begs the pearl to break its shell, and the lily, how passionately it needs some wild darling. At night, I open the window and ask the moon to come and press its face into mine. Breathe into me, close the language door and open the love window. The moon won't use the door, only the window. I just want to read a little from my short introduction and then a few paragraphs which try to describe why Dorothy is so important and unique a poet. And then Dorothy will read, and then I will read. And if we survive such an experience, Kabir will play afterwards. This is what I said in the introduction. I said, of all modern visionary poets, Dorothy Walters is, to my mind, by far the wisest and most radiant. I was going to write by far the best, and then checked myself. Such triumphalism would betray the deepest of all Dorothy's qualities, both as a person and as a poet, her gently relentless humility forged from deep experience. I would revere Dorothy's work even if I did not know her, even if she were not among the handful of people I love most in the world. Dorothy is now in her mid-80s. To know her is to know someone who has been through a great deal in life, both deep sorrow and continuing revelation, who knows just how terrible the situation we find ourselves in, but who has continued to explore in herself and for all of us sources of ever-deepening faith, resolve, and joy. You could be forgiven for missing this heroic dimension to her work, pursued through years of steady devotion despite lack of wide recognition. Read these poems carefully, and tears of awe and gratitude will come to your eyes, and you will be forever subtly changed. I had the honor of introducing Dorothy's first book of poems to really break upon the spiritual world, Marrow of Flame. And I played a small part in its creation because I was giving classes on Rumi in San Francisco, and this lovely, unprepossessing woman came to see me at my office hours with a group of poems. My heart always sinks when people bring groups of poems, because I have read some of the worst poetry ever written on this earth and always tried to be as benign as I could be. So I said gently, of course, I'd love to read them. And immediately she left, I did read them, and I was absolutely astounded. And I begged her when I next saw her to pour her soul out in poetry. And for some reason, she took what I said seriously, and the rest is mystical history. But here are the paragraphs that I wrote about why I believe these poems are so special. There are three things I'm especially grateful for in these poems. The first is their unfailing craft, the reward of decades of study of English and other literatures, and humble daily practice in various forms and genres. No one achieves so transparent and so sharply and exactly cadenced a living voice without immense work and literary acumen. Dorothy's command of all the tricks of the poet's trade is all the more impressive for being so hidden. At no point does manner ever overpower substance. All her artifice as a maker is at the service of the higher and more important truths she knows and is trying to honor. She is far too enamored of the initiations of silence to overprivilege the games of language. Yet the words of her finest poems shine with this silence, as the moon does, reflecting a secret sun. The second aspect of her poems that I'm profoundly moved by and grateful for is what I can only call its spiritual honesty. In a time of grotesque and vulgar mystic hype and inflation, the sometimes hesitant, exploratory clarity of the voice of these poems comes as the most vivid refreshment. Rumi used to say that you can tell an authentic mystic by the sear marks of the flame of love on their faces and hearts. Such sear marks are everywhere evident in Marrow of Flame. Dorothy has fought and suffered greatly, as most true mystics do, for her illumination, and can communicate to us, without frightening us, just how much the quest really costs, and what resources of courage and self-knowledge and abandon you have to summon from deep within yourself to be able to continue it. Unlike many modern so-called mystics, Dorothy does not claim anything like total enlightenment. There are a lot of totally enlightened people in Boulder, I've noticed, or parade her ecstasies as guaranteeing her any special election. She knows far too much not to know that the authentic journey is into a deeper and deeper humility, a greater and greater awe at the divine, and has and can have no final end in this or any of the other worlds or dimensions. As Dorothy said to me once, I have discovered that we are always traveling onward. The higher and further we travel, the lighter we become. The third power of these poems that I want to celebrate is their initiatory intensity. They themselves are the crafted births of a prolonged and continual initiation into divine reality. Their candor is the candor of the emerging divine self, speaking of its discoveries directly. They not only incessantly invoke the divine light in all of its modes and operations, but are saturated with its energy. Anyone who reads these poems with an open soul will find themselves being led as if by the hand into the depths of their own most profound visions, insights, dreams, and revelations, and will receive almost without being conscious of it the most vivid kind of inner encouragement. For many years, I thought I would be among only a handful of people who knew who Dorothy is and who can derive strength and joy from her. And now, in these poems, she will make many new invisible soul friends, and her profound illumination will go on living long after she or I are dead, in the deathless light that all souls live in and somewhere know as their origin. God bless you, my darling friend, for having devoted your life to the only thing that matters, and for giving us these priceless testimonies of the real journey at a time when we need them so desperately.
Andrew, thank you. Well, we are all very, very honored tonight to have the presence of this magnificent soul with us. It is a rare, rare occasion that we are allowed to be in the presence of such a master. Andrew has been my inspiration, my beloved, my friend, my help, my mentor, everything. And without Andrew, we would not be here tonight, literally. Because he's right. When he was teaching in San Francisco, I did creep into his office, and I did carry some poems. And of course, I had been an English teacher. Now, I do not know if you know what happens if you're the English teacher, and that is to say exactly what he just mentioned, that students bring you their little poems, and it might be the only poem they've ever written, but they say, oh, look, I've written a poem. And then you try desperately to find something nice to say about this. I knew one teacher who would compliment the penmanship. She wanted to say something. So then it occurred to me, I'm doing exactly what my students have done. I'm going in here with these poems to show this great man. Now, I had known this great man because he had come to San Francisco to teach. And I had read Hidden Journey. And I loved that book because I was on a hidden journey. I had had an awakening experience, very intense, in 1981. And I didn't have anyone to tell it to. I did not have any teacher, any mentor, any guru, any guide, because there weren't any in Kansas in 1981. There was nobody in Kansas. I didn't know anybody who had ever heard of Kundalini.
This is the other Dorothy from Kansas.
Yeah, that's right. And people love to say to me, Dorothy, you're not in Kansas anymore. And I love to say, yeah, and you know what? When I was in Kansas, I really wasn't in Kansas. So here I was. I had left Kansas, and I had come to San Francisco, and I am going to say something very publicly here. It's very intimate, but I had been thrown into rapture. And I didn't even have a word for it. I didn't know what had happened to me. It was a very sudden and spontaneous awakening. And I had nobody to tell it to. If you have a big experience, you want to tell somebody. Well, I finally had some energy workers and teachers and all, and I tried to tell them. And the first one said, well, if you're lucky, you'll get over this. I thought, oh, who wants to get over rapture? And I told another one, and she was a teacher of a very esteemed teacher of Qigong, and was a Taoist and went to China and knew everything. And I told her, and she looked at me puzzled, and she said, well, no. The texts don't describe anything like that. You can have energy that is cold, energy that is hot, or energy that is electricity, but nothing like you describe. Well, there I was. And then I went into Andrew, and I did confess my story. And bless his heart, Andrew listened, and he understood my story. And then I did give him these poems. Now, in the meantime, I had read Hidden Journey. I'd prayed that I would give anything to meet this man, because I didn't know anybody else on a mystical journey. I don't think there were too many of us around at that time. So I said I would give anything to meet this man. Well, he just turned up. He just turned up in San Francisco, and he was teaching a class on Rumi. Well, I knew he was coming. I knew he's from Oxford. And I said, yeah, I'll bet I know what he'll be like. He'll be an older gray beard. He'll have a pot belly. He'll probably be wearing a tweed jacket with leather elbows, and he'll be smoking a pipe. But I still want to meet him. Well, he came in the classroom that day. I couldn't believe my eyes. This young, beautiful, vibrant fellow leapt up to the podium, and he turned around, and he wrote on the blackboard, and he said, only the fire eaters know the flame. And I thought, oh my word. I have been in dozens. I was a graduate student in English. I have been trained in literature. I have heard many, many teachers. I've never come across anything like this. And then he said, all right, shut your eyes. Let's just listen to this poem. And we did. And then he said, all right, now let's listen again, and let's just see how that makes us feel. I thought, feelings. I had been instructed never, ever to consider your feelings. You were supposed to take the poem and dissect it as if it was, an autopsy or something. It was called, what was it called? Anyway, that's what we did. Well, I thought, well, boy, this is different. This is different. So, of course, I fell in love with him. It was love at first sight. But that day I did venture into his office, and I did give him my poems, and he did look at them, and he said, "Dorothy," he said, "I want you to write a book of poems." And I said, "My dear darling Andrew, you are kidding me. I have written a few poems. But I can't write a book of poems." "Yes, you can," he said. "Yes, you can." And so I thought, well, gosh, I guess I can. So I did write a book of poems, and that was the beginning of all
Amazing
this,
book.
Marrow of Flame.
Wonderful book.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And Andrew even helped me write that book. I could point out the phrases and the lines that he contributed. That was a marvelous, marvelous experience. And so I went ahead, once I got started writing, I just kept on writing. And pretty soon, after a few years, I had written 4 books. And so then Andrew said, "Put those books into a selected poems volume." I thought, only famous poets do that. And I thought, well, all right. So I did. And that's what we have here tonight. And I'm going to read some poems, and I'll try to live up to the description he's just given. I hope it won't be an anticlimax to hear the poems themselves. But anyway, then Andrew's graciously going to read with me. And we read a while, then after a bit we will have an intermission, and we will have about a 10-minute intermission. And then after that we will have, if we have time, just a few questions from the audience. And then we will have a book signing. And you be assured, you can have Andrew sign your books, because as well as me, because he wrote these introductions, and he's so much a part of this story. And so without Andrew, as I said, we wouldn't be telling this story. So let us begin. Now, he just read you the Rumi poem that this is all based on. And this was my response to the Rumi poem. And remember, it begins, "There is some kiss we want with our whole lives, the touch of spirit on the body." I hope that gives you all a touch of spirit on body. Yes, of course. That is the thing we want. Touch of spirit on body. Delight of soul infleshed and open. Trembling at last, how could we not remember how it was before, when all we had was this cloud of longing, and did not even know what it was we were longing for? Each of us is seeking for a wise man or woman to lead us, to present us a scroll heavy with answers. Some of us have climbed the mountain, tracked the glacier's crust, lain down in snow for years, days and years, burning away to essence, preparing. Others have clung to the underside of overhanging rock until their fingers turned to stone, until they were riveted like lead to this thin edge of certainty. And others wander, drifting like mist through the valleys. What is it we are seeking? What will we do if we are brushed by this lion's mane? The runaway. First, a quote from Hafiz, who said, "The place where you are right now, God circled on a map for you." The poet says, God has put a circle around you on a map to locate you in sacred space. Then why do you keep tunneling underground, carving labyrinths for your escape. This is called Don't Make Lists. Don't make lists. Each day a new flower rises from your body's fresh soil. Don't go around looking for fallen petals in a fairy tale when you've got the golden plant right here, now, shining forth from your eyes, your awakening crown. Don't make lists or study ancient accounts. Forget everything you know and open. At the very moment, no matter what you know, someone is always wanting to correct you, to sell you a bill of goods from the shop marked authority. Well, all the authorities got frozen into stone years ago after the Great Flood. After the Great Flood wiped out original knowledge and left only these granite shadows. Reality is always soft clay, ever shifting and changing its shape. Fire it into form, and at the very moment you are hailing it as final truth, it will break in your hands. The task. This is like your journey. This is your journey. This is like a lover that gives no rest, but demands and demands and demands. Do you think this is a time for pausing, for lying about under the pine trees, sampling your lunch pail? If you are chosen to be the consort, do not refuse the king. If you have been outfitted for a journey to the Himalayas, do not nibble away your provisions before you reach the ice. Gifts. The divine lover, says Hafiz, will smash your windows out to throw in holy gifts. Did you realize that the windows would be all the openings into your own body, each pore, that your very soul would crumble, and you would lie awake nights listening to your bones cry out like hungry ghosts, grieving their lost worlds. Because the journey is not all joy. The journey is also pain. And here's a poem for our time, What the Prophets Said. They said that the planet would shake and vibrate at an ever-increasing rate. They said that there would be heat, more shaking everywhere. That many mountains and beings would be torn open and the spilling oceans would devour the land. That time itself would accelerate until it arrived at absolute zero. Conjunction then of no time, no place, only the terror of the real. What is happening? Moment to moment, we ask, what is happening? The sound of shattering everywhere. Is the world fragmenting at last? Or are our own hearts cracking, the final breakup of ice? Here's one Andrew likes. It's called The Witch.
I love the witch.
I was always a nice girl with a few bad habits. I whistled a lot out gathering eggs. When my brothers hand wrestled, I insisted on winning. The villagers said I walked like a boy. My father used to eye me from afar and hold private conversations in the corner with mother. When the other girls married, I took no notice, though I threw rice at the church door along with the rest. Whatever I was seeking, it wasn't this. A screaming cradle and a man with soot for fingers. Once I went to a gathering in the heart of the forest, where shadows make shadows. I learned my true name. Since then, I've lived here at the edge of the woods with my tabby and my charms, my thatch needing repair. My potions are famous all over these parts. When people come seeking from far and from near, they ask what goes in, and I mutter, roots and berries, berries and roots. How can I tell them it is themselves they taste? And here's another poem that Andrew likes. It's called Waiting. Waiting. It's kind of a mystery poem. The jeweled cloud sways overhead. Meanwhile, our cells are turning to light, are turning to air, finer and finer arrangements of light. And I think that is what's happening to us. I think we are becoming, all of us, finer and finer arrangements of light. We are. Okay, I'm going to read this against my better instincts. But this is Andrew's favorite poem. You know which one it is?
I do.
Okay, this is called God's Mistress. And I want to explain it just a little bit. Of course, the nun is accepted as the bride of Christ. And when that happens during the ceremony, she wears white like a bride, and she wears a ring. And she is acknowledged and applauded because she is now established as this wonderful being who is the bride of a divinity. Well, my experience wasn't quite like that. As I said, I had sudden, spontaneous ecstasy, which I was not prepared for, and that ecstasy did not stop. It kept on. It kept on. And again, I'm going to confess something here. It still happens. Not all the time, not every day, and not as intense, certainly. But it does happen in unexpected moments. So this is God's mistress. That's what I felt like. I was the other woman. The other bears his ring and name. I lurk in doorways, clothed in shadow, waiting for a touch so intense I no longer care what they call me or whisper about in the kitchens. I am the wanton who keeps close company with what the fathers denounce and the many shun. When God comes calling on his whore, the sidewalk's empty and all curtains close. And I think I will pause here and let Andrew read from part 2. Thank you.
What the heart wants is to follow its true passion, to lie down with it near the reeds beside the river, to devour it in the caves between the desert dunes, to sing its notes into the morning sky until even the angels wake up and take notice and look around for their beloved. Be prepared to swelter. If you want to go there, check your boots and your water bottle carefully. Find the map the old one gave you so long ago and do your best to follow it, though often you will make the wrong turn and go astray. Be prepared to swelter under many suns, drown in countless rivers. You will be shipwrecked many times, or else burnt to cinder, dust to dust. You will meet strange winged creatures who have no names, beings descending from the sky or rising up like cloud specters from below. They will tell you how to continue, what paths to follow, but check carefully what they say. Sometimes you will fall into caverns or caves and will not know how to get out until you see a faint light coming from a crack or crevice, its wings beckoning. And when you at last arrive, you may not remember who you are, what you were seeking, why you came. It will not matter. Now, only silence will do. Do you know how many times I have opened my body to yours? How often I have become whatever it is you are. I never know just when you will arrive, how you are going to look that day. Sometimes you are Shiva, tendrils flaming, ever dancing to keep the world alive. Sometimes that Buddha who lives in my front room, wise master, vessel of compassion, container of sensuous joy. Yesterday you were just an image on a temple wall, some long vanished holy man or woman with an inviting smile, no one I had heard of before. The form does not matter, only that you have come once more. And then there was the pain, so vast. It was like a hinge in time, an antediluvian landscape where memories burned the breath of all that moved, scalded the restless hours, kept us quivering and still. There were no recipes or ancient nostrums to heal, potions or sages to dispense counsel. Our agony kept us burrowing ever deeper into the crevices of our soul, seeking answers that did not come. Until, at last, we made final surrender, leapt into the abyss of waiting darkness, gave up trying to know or fathom with our riddled minds, relinquished everything, even the last scattered particles of who we were. And then the sweetness moved again. And this is a wonderful poem about Brokeback Mountain. And this expresses so deeply what I felt about Brokeback Mountain, and I'm so moved that you felt the same thing, Dorothy, being both veterans of those particular wars. I keep telling myself it was only a movie. But no, that grief has taken over my soul, moved in like a thief, and now inhabits the whole house, this house with dark ribbons on the door. Old wounds throbbing once again, old sorrows weeping like statues in a burial ground. They came together like two lightning clouds clashing, touched by a rod, a brief flash sweeping across the granite stones, momentary roar of thunder, the beast springing, then silence everywhere. And if, say, one day you reach the summit of the holy mount and are there shattered utterly by light, even then you must go on. Not like a saint spiraling upward, delicate feet barely tracing invisible arcs of air, but back once more at the granite foot, the rubbled start of it all, where you join again the struggling band, pilgrims climbing together on hands and rock-torn knees. I am not a Buddhist, nor am I a yogi. My robe has no special emblem or design. My great teacher is silence. I sit here now, listening. Poems for Mirabai. To dance in this field of radiance, what will I give? My good name long since taken from me, my tattered robe with mud for its hem. Oh no, haven't seen it for days. Family and friends, all have vanished, have turned their faces away. Still I dance, moving this way or that, following the inner currents, celebrating the hidden bliss. My lone partner, Krishna, and his silver flute, the music that plays only for those willing to be shattered again and again, ravished by sweetness, torn by that joy.
This next section, which is a third book, is called The Ley Lines of the Soul. And to me, ley lines are good. They're magic lines that run beneath the soil, and they connect often one sacred place with another. So that's why I call this The Ley Lines of the Soul. First, we'll start with a quote from Rilke, who said, "Before I was named, I belonged to you. Wherever I was, hidden in your thigh, a sycamore seed waiting in earth, a thought preparing to leap forth. I had no name. My body had no shape. My eyes were not yet opened. Even my face was dark. What are the features of that which does not exist? Nevertheless, I was yours, an unmarked impulse, a treasure you carried like a charm hung from your vest before you sent me down. How to see an angel. Stand very still. Don't breathe. Or if you do it silently. Be in a familiar place, or else a place which feels familiar, under a tree, or by running water, or in the church, or a temple, where vibrations of the holy still linger. Incense and candles are all right, but not required. If you know a prayer or a mantra, this is the time. Music will help, especially kirtans or hymns. Look around for bits of color, small flashes of light. Close your eyes for one brief moment, then open and turn very slowly. Listen for something that sounds like a wooden flute playing in the distance. You will feel a quiet breeze float over you. Your cells will brighten, and you will give a little sigh. This is when it will happen. There will be a soft rush of wings, a blur of shiny movement. Everything will light up as if you're standing in a cloud of sweet feeling. Now, look straight ahead. An image will appear at the corner of your eye. White wings hovering against a field of blue and gold. Your heart will open, and you will become as if you were two lovers kissing. When you awaken, you will find a single feather in your hand. It's called Whatever You Do. Whatever you do, don't waste your time struggling with issues about faith or whether the other is real. Do not worry about your own existence, whether you are palpable or just a mirage floating in a mirror. When the worthies begin debating, such things inside the temple, do not bow and listen. Run outside, rattle the windows, storm the doors. Let the music of light come in. Better still, turn them out into the sun. Point their solemn faces toward the trees, blossoming in fall's swelling luminosity. Let them see how brilliant a leaf is when it falls so gracefully from a tree. And the trees turning into a new incarnation. How majestic the limbs in their bright, emerging configurations. And here's one that begins with a quote from dear John O'Donohue that we all love. I love this line. He says, "At the end of the day, give thanks for being betrothed to the invisible." And I think that's true. We are betrothed to the invisible. However one looks at it, it was not easy, that bridal night, mingling of self and the unknown who appeared. Everything took place in secrecy and silence at the hidden center, the core, where presence begins. How do you mate with something unseen? Become one with what has no form or name. The days were filled with sweetness and tumult. Nights so intense that passion itself became too pale a word. The world unfolded in endless celebration, a constant feast to which the heart said yes and the spirit yearned. Now, oh lovers, we live quietly, sometimes meet and nod in recognition, and remembrance of that special time when we no longer knew who was lover, who beloved. Nobody understands this unless they have been there. Travel the rock-strewn road, fallen into the deep well. How could you know how to have your heart eaten by a lion unless you had heard the lion's roar, felt his clasp upon your throat? What could you imagine about lost angels floating down on pulsing streams of light unless your bed was covered in feathers when you awoke? I'm going to read one more. Whatever you do, don't tell anyone about this. They make laws against such alliances, put people in prison cells, lock them away like shadows. They do not wish to hear our story. Our tale must not be told, except, of course, to those ready to listen, the ones also enfolded in the precious cloak, tapestry embroidered of God's flesh. No, he's not supposed to play very long.
And now there are, it seems, theories of everything, of love, of death, of sleep, of winning or losing, of the origin of stars, or where we may have come from so many years ago. Dostoevsky abhorred those systems in which the so-called rational governs human affairs, philosophies which ignore spirit and human feeling, those inner lights which deliver us from false assumptions and thus save us from betraying others and ourselves. Now, science posits entire universes beside and within our own, parallels where time, space, the arc of enlightenment, the dark night of the soul's eclipse are all happening constantly, contiguously, perhaps even in our own living space, all undetected by our shrunken senses. But if we cannot see it, how can we believe? Something shadows us, insists on asking, what about all that nightly going hither and thither, ghost forms streaming out of the body toward the light and back again, skating between time present and the lost ages of tribal memory? And of course, accounts of angels. Strange encounters with curious forms, from dwarfs to demons, stories of those who travel timelessly from one spot to another, see great distances, or appear in many places, all at the same moment. The most celebrated man of recent years, with his famous halo of glinting hair, gave us theories of the stars, the planets hung in their twirling spaces, their dizzying rounds, but nothing on this, our constant dilemma, who in fact we truly are, into what other universe our journey takes us now. Beethoven, the immeasurable. Ah, Beethoven, with your madness and your grief, your raging tones and blocked ears that shut out all but your fury and your sorrow, your untamed notes that defied it all, even the gods, the forces that would drag you down, nothing to love but the fickle boy, not even clean linen or food, just the pulsing heartbeat of the universe, throbbing constantly in your seething brain. I do not know how I got caught up on this wave, bounding and tossing, always farther out to sea, always being shaped into a new image. Meanwhile, my other self, watching not so much in fear, but in curiosity and a casual interest from the shore, thinking, yes, now I am becoming who I truly am. Go ahead, pound and mold me. Make me whatever it is I'm supposed to be. Now at this time, in this place, neither of which is locatable on timepieces or maps, both together, forming a matrix constantly shifting, as if it can't quite make up its mind how it wants to go, or else has a purpose that no one else can see. To live like a mole, you must go underground. Feel your way along the velvet passages. Only come up to wash your face in sun. When Raven flies, he sees everything below, all the shuddering mountain leaves falling to the cold ground, the intricate snow sculpting the earth into strange shapes, dragons and stars. In the cities there is frenzy. in the pastures, things dying quietly or being reborn in green. Some are caught between chaos and stillness, pulled like loose sails, don't know which way to turn. Others hone in, fix their sights on one thing, become its texture and form, the feel of its chiseled surfaces. On your slender body, you wore what women wore then. Not silk, but jeans, long white shirt, hair parted behind. You came in humming a song, up to date, like you. Your Indian eyes were brown, distant, as if you were looking at a secret, something far away. You were like a scent hovering nearby, perfuming the room, saying, "Here I am. I've come." We did nothing exceptional. Sometimes we played bridge with the others in the living room or shared a meal with them. We seldom went places together. Everything centered on the one room, ours. Something there carried us to yet another place. I keep wondering what happened to you, where you went, how many lovers you had afterward. Was it true, as the newspaper said, you had married? It was hard to believe, and I wondered why. Where are you now? Do you still sing those throaty songs like love strokes in the dark? I still have your picture. If your heart has not been burnt to cinders, how can you know the taste of the flame? If you have not drowned in the ocean of love, how can you measure the embrace of the abyss? If you have not felt God's kiss on your mouth, how can you find the death which is life?
There are many ways of approaching the throne. Some move solemnly, majestically, a procession of wise men contemplating a final reality. For others, it is a celebration of the soul in love trance. They are caught in a fiery transformation, a dancing beyond the reach of silence or the word. Others quietly abase themselves, moving forward slowly, intent, imprinting the dust again and again, with their bodies thin shadows as they go. The Buddha, who is you, is kissing you inside. The Buddha, who is you, is filling your body with light. Open always to the light. Let your body, each filament and cell, shine with the luminous one, the immaculate being who is who you are. The winemakers. The winemakers claim that only they know how to brew, that age itself is the key to the celestial drink. But some of us could not wait. We took a sip early, and we got dead drunk on the first sip. It's called Zen Poem. Long journey, no guide, many deserts and mountains, peaks and valleys. Finally arrived home, almost knew where I was. Journeys. Some went to India and Egypt to seek the wonder. They met the sages, entered the pyramids, searching for the hidden treasure. Not one to travel, I did not explore the sacred centers. I stayed home and felt the bliss. You and I, my darling, we made love together for so many days, endless nights. Our journey ended in each other. And I want to say one more poem, and it's a new poem. It's not even in the book, it's so new. It's called The Visitor. A knock came at the door. Who is it? I said. It is the friend, was the answer. Go away, I said. I don't have a friend. Next day, knock came again. Again a voice said. Again I said, who's there? Voice said, it is I, the friend. I said, get away, I told you, I don't have a friend. Next day, third day, it came again. This time I looked out the window to see who was making all that racket. And it was then that I saw myself standing there, waiting to come in. Thank you.
I want to read these two things.
Oh, Andrew has two more he wants to read, and then we're going to take a short break.
These are my two favorite poems. And the first is about Rumi. And one of the great joys of my relationship with Dorothy is that we've been able to share our completely crazy passion for Rumi. Hours and hours of quoting him, hours and hours of truly trying to enter into the miracle that he was and is. And this poem always breaks my heart. It's so beautiful. And it's about the great sacred love affair that Rumi had with Shams, the love affair that has forever transformed our understanding of what human relationship can be. Shams, I have done everything I know, so this would not happen. You came into my life like a wing of fire, possessing and possessed by something not seen. When you first spoke, my books turned to clay and my throat closed around a lost syllable. Your eyes burned over me, leaving scars of rapture, and my spirit became a field, swept clean by flame. Can you think how it was? That morning I woke first and found you, an unbound mystery, by my side. Or the day that we did not eat but drank from one another's light till we were ribboned by dusk. The air here holds only emptiness, a little dust stirring. I think there will be wind tonight, and the camels will cry out in their sleep. And then this poem, The Secret, which has very little to do with the film that was made.
Yes.
That dreadful, dreadful film. And now, the representative of all of those filthy, stupid, disgusting values is going to be the most powerful person in the world. God help us. God will. Here is the secret, the real secret. I carry it around like a flower or a flame concealed under a dark canister. Its glass so thick no light can pierce its black skin. Sometimes I think I am no better than some Caliban raving in his cave, conjuring visions, or an ordinary housewife who plays harlot by night. Sometimes I think I grow tired of my burden and want to set it down. Let someone else bear this cargo of love. Thank you, Dorothy, for having borne the cargo of love.
Now, thank you all. Thank you all for coming. It was so delightful to be here with you. And I know so many of you, so many familiar faces. I appreciate it so much. We are going to have a short break. And then after that, we're going to, I don't know if we'll have time for questions or not, but well, we have a few questions. And then we're going to have a book signing. And be sure and get Andrew to sign your book. And if you brought a book that you already have by Andrew, get him to sign that. And then we'll sign this book too, because he wrote the introductions. So we'll have this little break now. Thank you so much. This has been an incredible honor. For me, it's almost like the apex. It's almost like the culmination. It may be my farewell appearance. But we'll see. We'll see.